There comes a point where training every day stops being discipline and starts being a silent mistake. You wake up, take a deep breath, warm up your body as you always have. The ritual remains intact. The routine doesn't fail. But something isn't progressing. Strength doesn't grow. Control slips away. The mind tightens even before the first movement. It's as if the body responds with silence instead of power. You keep going because you were trained to keep going. Because you were told that stopping is weakness. Because consistency has become your identity. But deep down, there's a tension that won't be resolved. A fatigue that doesn't disappear with stretching. A shadow that appears before the first push-up. Heavy, invisible, persistent. The mirror still shows form, but it doesn't show the wear and tear that accumulates inside. Perhaps what you're feeling isn't a lack of willpower. Perhaps it's not laziness. Perhaps it's your body trying to tell you something your mind refuses to hear. There comes a point when repetition ceases to be progress and becomes insistence. And that moment almost never comes with acute pain. It comes with stagnation, with shortness of breath, with the feeling of always being on the edge, even without going any further. What you're about to hear might change the way you train. Perhaps it will explain why so many people train every day and still don't get anywhere. Before continuing, write in the comments, at what point in your routine did you start to feel, what if something was wrong, even though he was training flawlessly? At first, daily calisthenics feels like a sacred pact. A silent agreement between you and your own body, every day, without fail. Repetition becomes a virtue. Pain becomes a test of character. You begin to believe that absolute consistency is synonymous with evolution, that discipline means never retreating, never adjusting, never questioning. Each session becomes a renewed vow. Today, I will not stop either. And in the first few days, the body responds. The pump appears. The breathing adapts. The strength seems to grow too fast to be ignored. That's when the fantasy takes hold. You look back and think, it's working. And when something seems to work, the mind closes its ears. Technique becomes a detail. Rest becomes weakness. Listening to the body becomes an excuse. The hero is born, but is born blind. This illusion is dangerous because it doesn't shout. It whispers. It disguises itself as discipline. You begin to confuse progress with controlled exhaustion. You believe that feeling heavy is a sign of building, when often it's a sign of accumulation. Pain ceases to be a warning and becomes an invisible trophy. You carry this trophy every day without realizing the price. Daily calisthenics, when guided solely by willpower, creates a specific type of mental trap. You begin to measure value by how much you can endure, not by how much you progress. Your identity becomes tied to suffering. If it hurts, it's right. If it's tiring, it's working. And so the training ceases to be a conscious process and becomes an automatic ritual, repeated blindly. The problem is that the body doesn't negotiate with fantasies. It responds to what is done, not to what is believed. Micro-injuries begin to accumulate. Shoulders close. Scapulae lose function. The core compensates. Posture adapts to the error. None of this appears immediately. On the outside, you still seem strong. On the inside, the foundation begins to crack. This is the initial illusion, believing that more is always better, that persistence is always a virtue, that hero discipline is simply about not being absent. But real discipline is not blindness. It's not pride. It's not stubbornness. And when this truth begins to approach, it doesn't arrive as a shock. It arrives as a constant discomfort, difficult to explain, impossible to ignore. If this kind of reflection resonates with you, leave a like. This helps this content reach those who are also trapped in this silent illusion. And if you want to continue walking alongside this journey, subscribe to the channel. Here, discipline isn't shouting, it is continuous vigilance regarding what truly makes a hero. While the mirror shows definition, inside the structure begins to give way. This is the most dangerous paradox of daily calisthenics. Visually, everything seems in order. Muscles are more apparent. Veins are emerging. Greater control over one's own weight. But below the surface, where no one looks, the system enters a state of continuous alert. Tendons begin to accumulate micro-traumas. Joints lose their range of adaptation. The nervous system never completely shuts down. The human body doesn't fail dramatically at the beginning. It warns silently. A longer delay in recovery, a stiffness that doesn't disappear with warming up, a subtle drop in explosiveness, small compensations that seem harmless but repeat themselves day after day. The invisible problem arises precisely there, when the mind interprets these signs as positive adaptation, when in reality they are marks of accumulated wear and tear. Repetition without strategy creates internal noise. The body starts operating in defensive mode. It doesn't evolve, it survives. Each workout ceases to be a clear stimulus and becomes just another tolerated aggression. The muscles may respond, but the support systems lag behind, and since they don't show up in the mirror, they are ignored. The mind plays a central role in this mistake. There's a silent pride in training when tired, an internal validation in enduring one more day. Discipline begins to be measured by resistance to exhaustion, not by the quality of movement. And so, adaptation becomes synonymous with controlled wear and tear. You adapt to functioning worse without realizing it. The nervous system, constantly stimulated without real pause, enters a state of chronic vigilance. Fine motor coordination declines. Movement control becomes less precise. Breathing loses efficiency. Strength still exists, but it comes accompanied by excessive tension. Everything becomes heavier, more rigid, less fluid. It's the body asking for adjustment, not more effort. This is the mistake no one notices because they don't stop training immediately. They allow it to continue. They allow it to persist. They allow it to maintain the illusion until the day something freezes, becomes inflamed, or simply stops responding. And when that happens, many believe the problem arose suddenly. But it didn't. It had been building up silently, repetition after repetition. The invisible problem doesn't shout. It whispers every day between repetitions, waiting to be heard. And ignoring it is not a sign of strength. It's a sign of disconnection between mind and body. If you've ever felt this silent weariness, even without being able to explain it exactly, where does it begin? Comment here with a word that describes that feeling. There comes a moment when something breaks inside. It's not the muscle, it's not the tendon, it's the narrative you've been telling yourself. The hero stops, breathes, and realizes that it's no longer the body that's failing. It's the mind that's trapped. Trapped in stubbornness. Trapped in the idea that stopping is weakness. Trapped in the silent pride of never failing, never reducing, never adjusting. This is the true MoonKnight moment, when the conflict ceases to be external and reveals itself as internal. You understand that the harsh routine isn't the problem. Pain isn't the villain. The enemy is the belief that suffering more always means evolving more. The mind transforms discipline into punishment and calls it virtue. And meanwhile, the body simply obeys, accumulating signals that nobody wants to hear. There is fear in resting, fear of losing progress, fear of appearing weak, fear of breaking the identity built on, "I can handle it." And it is precisely this fear that keeps the hero trapped. The mind confuses consistency with rigidity, confuses commitment with blindness, confuses hero discipline with blind insistence. At this point, the struggle changes. It's no longer about completing sets. It's about facing the thoughts that arise when you slow down, the emptiness that appears when you don't train to your limit, the uncomfortable question, who am I if I'm not always pushing myself? This silence weighs more than any repetition. The inner turning point happens when the hero accepts that force without conscience becomes sabotage. That discipline without intelligence becomes exhaustion. Hero discipline is not about doing more at any cost. It's about thinking better before acting. It's about choosing when to advance and when to retreat. It's about understanding that strategic rest is not escape. It's part of the combat. The mind begins to reorganize itself. Pride gives way to vigilance. Stubbornness yields space to bodily listening. The hero realizes that he doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, not even to himself all the time. He needs to endure. He needs to evolve without breaking. This understanding doesn't come with euphoria. It comes with weight, with maturity, with responsibility. Here, discipline takes on a new meaning. It ceases to be a race against one's own limits and becomes a conscious management of them. The hero still trains hard, but now trains lucidly. Every choice carries intention. Every pause has a purpose. Every adjustment is an act of mental strength, not weakness. If this inner moment has resonated with you, leave a like to keep this vigil active. And if this journey aligns with how you train or want to train, subscribe to the channel to continue walking alongside this conscious construction of hero discipline. Correction begins when movement ceases to be a reflex and becomes a choice. Until then, the body was merely reacting. It repeated because it was habit. It forced itself because it was routine. It endured because it thought that was discipline. But true change happens when the hero slows down enough to see what they are doing and why they are doing it. Alternating stimuli isn't about whimsical variation. It's recognizing that the body learns in layers. Repeating the same pattern every day creates rapid adaptation and silent stagnation. The body stops responding because it has already understood the stimulus. Technical correction emerges when training begins to respect this internal dialogue. Push one day, sustain the next. Reduce volume to gain control. The pause ceases to be an interval and becomes a strategy. Posture becomes a mirror of the mind. Shoulders positioned with intention. Scapulae conscious. Core active not through tension, but through presence. Each adjustment reveals something deeper. The hero is no longer fighting against their own body, but working with it. Repetition ceases to be survival and becomes construction. There is a silent moment when the body understands the message. It's not an explosion. It's not an immediate peak of strength. It's stability, less diffuse pain, more fine control. Breathing organizes itself. Movement flows without haste. The hero realizes that he was spending too much energy fighting against small, accumulated, invisible errors. Correcting doesn't hurt more than insisting. On the contrary, correcting relieves. Hero discipline appears here in a concrete way, not as discourse, but as practice. Choosing to stop a set before failure. Adjusting the base. Restarting the movement with less load and more awareness. This requires more mental strength than pushing to collapse, because there is no applause. There is no immediate feeling of victory. There is only silence and focus. At this point, the training changes texture. It becomes slower, more intense. Each repetition carries intention. Each pause carries awareness. The hero understands that he doesn't need to prove his own body's resilience. He needs to teach it. And the body learns when it is respected. The technical correction that changes everything isn't an external formula. It's a change in internal posture. It's about stopping training on autopilot and starting to train in the present moment. It's about transforming each movement into a conscious agreement between mind and body. From here, progress is no longer noisy, but solid. If you've ever gone through that moment of correction or realized you needed it, comment below which technical adjustment has most changed the way you train. The vigil never ends because the training is never repeated in the same way. The body awakens differently each day, and the mind carries echoes of the previous effort. There are sessions where everything flows, and others where the silence weighs heavily, even before the first movement. It is in this invisible space that the journey truly continues, not in the gesture, but in the internal reading of what has changed since yesterday. Over time, the hero learns that progress isn't about insisting. It's about observing. It's about recognizing when breathing shortens for no reason, when tension appears where it shouldn't, when the impulse to force things stems more from ego than discipline. Each training session transforms into a silent dialogue between intention and limit. Nothing shouts. Everything signals. The continuation of the journey demands presence. To be fully present, even when no one is watching. To adjust before breaking, to reduce before falling, to understand. That true strength lies not in pushing the body beyond the blind spot, but in remaining lucid when the mind wants to prove something. The hero doesn't chase progress. He builds it in slow, almost imperceptible layers. This is how discipline matures. Less noise, more control, less empty repetition, more meaning in every choice. Calisthenics ceases to be just training and becomes constant self-vigilance. And as long as there is something to observe, correct, and understand, the journey remains open, awaiting the next conscious step, a quiet adjustment, the next decision made away from the eyes of the world. If this journey resonated with you, leave a comment below. Write, I train when nobody's watching, not to prove anything, but to mark this silent vigil that few choose to maintain. Each word left, there is an echo of discipline that shows you are not alone in this internal struggle. If it makes sense, follow this channel. Subscribing isn't an automatic gesture. It's a decision to continue exploring the discipline as identity, not as spectacle. Liking keeps this vigil active, allowing this reflection to reach those who still train in silence, trying to understand why to continue. The journey doesn't end here. There's a chapter of this struggle waiting for you right next door, and it begins exactly where your discipline decides not to back down.